All right, how about an entertainment video for today? Because there's some news that came up that I said, wait, what? So we're going to start with my I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious t shirt. I'm into the last season of The Office, and, it's still The Office. It still has the feelings of The Office, it still has the characters of The Office. It feels very paint by numbers by the end of it. Like that last season, it just feels like it's all very just cut and dried, and there's no even some of the opening bits that you have your cold opens. Some of those aren't done very well either. So where instead of it being a cold open that has nothing to do with the episode, which is what most of them are, and the most famous one for me is Kevin dropping his chili when he comes into the office. That's never mentioned again. But some of them, they actually just they're a preview of what's going to happen in the episode, and they're kind of So the thing is, I don't find myself laughing out loud as much. I do still laugh out loud pretty much once an episode, though, and it's usually Creed, and Creed seems to be the one character that consistently throughout the entire series, I can still laugh whenever he speaks, which tells me the writing's still kind of there. But as soon as you take Michael out of the mix, you lose something. You definitely lose something without Michael, because when they bring in Nelly to kind of be that goofy Michael type character, it doesn't work. And you have Robert California, who just comes across as creepy, and it just doesn't work. It's in no way does it work. Now, speaking of not working, I tried watching Batwoman this year. I did. I tried a couple of episodes, and I found it dark. I found it dreary, and I found the title character to be kind of boring. And I watched her in the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths, and she was meh, and the character was kind of meh. And so I couldn't get into it. And now it comes out today that Ruby Rose is leaving the show that she's the main character of. So they're recasting her. Now there's some debate about whether or not she wanted to leave the show because she got injured during filming this year, and after she got injured, she then did fewer stunts, and maybe it's something to do with the injury, or maybe she just wasn't happy, or maybe they weren't happy with her, and maybe this just was an acrimonious relationship. But the way how do I put this? Ruby Rose is sort of like a female Keanu Reeves for me, in that very attractive, limited acting ability, and so that limited acting ability it makes things tough. And so yeah, she leaves the show, and now they're going to recast the character. I thought, well, maybe you can bring in a new person to be Batwoman. Maybe she leaves and you bring in a new Batwoman. Certainly, we've seen in comic book history where different people can be Spider-Man, different people can be Batman, different people can be any number of superheroes. But I guess they're just going to recast the character and bring in a new actress. And they've already sworn that Ruby Rose, who is gay in real life, that they're going to find another actress who is gay in real life and bring her into the role. So we'll see how this goes. We'll see how it works, but hopefully they get it right, because the DC universe on CW is pretty darn solid, and then you get to Batwoman and it's kind of a brick wall. I've talked about Supergirl and how it's kind of meh, but Supergirl still, Melissa Benoist is Supergirl. She absolutely nails it. She's perfect. She's a very good actress, and there are some very good episodes in Supergirl. The overall arc. John Cryer is not Lex Luthor at all. He just isn't. But it still has its moments, and at least it feels like she's Supergirl. Batwoman, I didn't buy it. So I know this may not be entertainment news, but I was surprised by this. Pier 1 permanently closed. My wife and I have never gone in a store. There was one here locally. Never went in it. And I don't know how many people necessarily went in. Apparently, Pier 1 was already having some struggles before the whole world came to an end. And they were already looking at closing about half of their stores. And now they're just like, okay, we're done. And I'm wondering how many stores are going to do away with brick and mortar and just go online. We've already heard that there are many employers looking at the fact that their employees can work from home, and they're realizing they can save a lot of money by not having to pay for brick and mortar. And you can still have people working from home. I know even when I worked at a call center, I said, there's a way they could do this from home. There's a way that there could be a call center done where it's not a centralized location. You can just work from home. So maybe we're getting to that point. And it was always a matter of trust. It was always a matter of the employer saying, well, we don't trust that people, if we did do this remotely, would actually do their job. Turns out people will likely do their job to get paid. So that was my answer always too, is like, well, I would probably want to get paid. It doesn't do me any good if you guys can tell I'm never taking a call and I'm not actually doing anything, so you're not going to pay me. It doesn't work. But anyways, I do wonder how many businesses are going to be done remotely. And so I know this doesn't necessarily qualify as entertainment news, but it feels like everything's kind of changing around this. And there may be a lot of businesses and maybe some entertainment as well that changes. I've already mentioned there may be more movies that just go to video on demand than go to theaters. It's been kind of a dirty terminology, which is, this movie was going to come out in theaters, but now they decided to release it direct to video and immediately go, oh, this movie's got to be crap. And it usually is. But maybe that'll change now. Maybe the only movies that go to theaters, and I've said this recently as well, maybe the only movies that go to the theater are either your artsy-fartsy type movies. Think like, your Woody Allen, your Kevin Smith movies, your artsy-fartsy stuff. More artsy with Woody Allen, more fartsy with Kevin Smith. I think Kevin Smith would agree with that. There's more fart jokes in his movies than arts. We may see those movies being released, and of course your big blockbusters, and then everything in between. Maybe it just goes direct to video. Maybe they figure, this we make money this way too, and we save ourselves on budget. It saves us on the advertising costs. We can just release this way. So we'll see. And that would definitely benefit your online streaming services like Disney Plus, like Netflix, Hulu in the States, Crave in Canada. So yeah, we'll see what they do. Martha Hart is going to be in the news, and people are going to ask me about this. I haven't watched Dark Side of the Ring yet on Owen Hart. The Dark Side of the Ring series, I kind of lived through it. Back before everybody was on the internet as much as they are now. Back in the mid-90s, I was on the internet a lot. So back at the start for dirt sheets online, I remember, being on a lot of those websites and going through a lot of the information that was on them regularly. So when Owen Hart passed away, I remember a lot of the drama about it. And WWE screwed up. They royally screwed up. Martha Hart won a $18 million lawsuit against the WWE. And to this day, she will not allow WWE to pay tribute to Owen. She will not allow them to put him into, as she calls it, the fake Hall of Fame. She's right. It is a fake Hall of Fame. When you have a Hall of Fame that has Coco Beware in it, and it doesn't have some of the greats in wrestling history in it, it basically comes down to a popularity contest. We can argue whether or not all of them are popularity contests, but WWE, it definitely seems like it's popularity contest. And you look at some of the guys that are in and some of the guys that are out, and it just doesn't make any sense. And so she won't allow Owen to be inducted. I don't blame her, but there's some animosity between her and Brett. She states that Brett wanted access to his catalog and his image through WWE and was going with her, and then when she wasn't able to secure it, he buddied up with Vince McMahon again so that he would have access to it, and that then he turned against her. I don't know the exact truth to this. I think the only ones that do are Martha and Brett. I will say this, Brett's put out a statement saying that she's oversimplifying. It does kind of sound like that would be an oversimplification. When Brett left WWE, it pained him, and he did see Vince as a father figure. He did see Vince McMahon as a father figure. And obviously very torn up about what happened to his brother, and he did feel at the time, and there's documentary evidence of this, that he felt like if he'd been there it wouldn't have happened. But he's kind of done his best to move on as much as you can a couple of decades later. And Martha, Owen's widow, she has the rights. And if she's saying, nope, they're not doing it, then you have to respect that. And while I understand Brett wanting to see his brother honored as well. Because what ends up happening is Owen then gets forgotten by the generations that follow. So at least with Dark Side of the Ring, you're going to have a new generation finding out just how much Owen was just screwed over. I remember when Brett left, and I thought, well, at least Owen can do something now. And Owen came out on Monday Night Raw, and he was fantastic. He attacked Shawn, he attacked Triple H. It was great, and it felt real. It felt like Owen went out there and going, okay, I can land some stiff shots right now on Michaels. I'm doing it. I'm doing this for my brother. And it felt like they gave Owen a chance to be a badass character and to kind of take up that mantle as being a new version of the Hitman. And then they just dropped it, and he went back to being kind of a joke. And I thought they absolutely ruined it. I thought Owen Hart had a chance to be the absolute face of the company, and they just blew it. They absolutely blew it. And I don't know if it was Vince didn't see that in Owen, if he saw Owen as just a prankster backstage and he didn't see a main event presence, but that is one of the great tragedies, is that he wasn't seen as a main eventer. And if he was, he wouldn't have been strapped up in the rafters and being dropped to the ring looking like a moron. So that's where my upset comes in. And so I can understand Martha's perspective. I can understand Brett's. And it's just an overall crap situation. Owen wasn't treated great. He really wasn't. So speaking of wrestling, Raw's ratings are staying near a record low. My worry about this is that the powers that be might look and go, well, Drew McIntyre's not a draw. Drew McIntyre's absolutely fantastic right now. He is having a ball as the guy with the belt. He is a genuine main eventer. He's a genuine badass. He is absolutely believable in this role. And I think it's some of the best work he's ever done. And sadly, it's without fans in attendance. And so they can only go by ratings. And if they go by ratings, his title reign may not last very long. And they may look and go, well, we're going to have to bring Brock back and put the title on him again, I guess, because that's the only way we're going to get the ratings up. I really hope not. But would I be surprised if that happens? Sadly, no. So I'm very, very proud of the work Drew's done. I think he's been great. I think his entrance music spot, everything about Drew is fantastic. And sadly, there isn't a crowd there to really pump that up and really show the people backstage that, hey, the fans are really behind him. The ratings are not dropping because fans aren't behind Drew. Especially when you just keep feeding him Andrade every week. Or one of Andrade's buddies, and then you have that whole thing with the Zelina Vega group, which is just weird. But yeah, we'll see how things go, and I don't think Raw's ratings are going to get a whole lot better. Keep in mind, the ratings weren't that high before we had the world go on lockdown. And now it just feels like the lockdown combined with some iffy writing going into the lockdown is just, it's all kind of added up. I don't know how much the ratings would go up if we had fans in attendance right now. They'd go up, but I don't know the number. And it's up to Vince to make some decisions that we'll see how that goes. Red Letter Media. So I'm going to mention Red Letter Media here. They've got a new Star Trek Plinkett review. I haven't watched it yet for the show Picard. I got 2 episodes into Picard before I went, well, I know what this crap is. And it's too bad because Star Trek could be so much more. So I will be watching it. I'm giving them a free plug here. They have no idea who I am. I'll move on. But they do great work. So Red Letter Media's Plinkett reviews are fantastic. And Picard, yes, please. I'll watch that. Now, on to the news. I mentioned in a video last week, I believe it was, that CW's got 60% of their shows delayed till 2021. Or all of their shows are delayed till 2021. And now it's come out that about 60% of scripted shows around the network television market are all going to be delayed until 2021. So you're not going to have TV shows in October or September. You won't get them until January at the earliest. I would think with the amount of opening up that we're seeing, like for instance Vancouver, they're up to stage 2 of opening. I would think TV shows will start filming again probably this week in Vancouver. And there's a lot of shows filmed in Vancouver. And the bonus is, with the streets kind of sort of empty, it's easier to film your TV shows because people are still staying home for the most part. So we'll see how many of them are delayed, and they're talking about having full seasons. It's funny, I've talked about in the sports world how seasons could get backed up. And I've had people saying, no, you can't. You got to have everything on schedule. TV shows could get backed up. So we could see season finales in July on television. And this could just be reality for a couple of years until things get caught up. The sports world, we could have everything delayed for a couple of years until things get caught up. It is a minor inconvenience considering everything that's going on around us. Now, I wanted to end off with this because Simon Pegg was interviewed about Star Trek and he said it may be better off being on TV than in movies. I disagree. I think the problem with Star Trek is simple. They try to appeal to the mainstream. They try to appeal to everybody, and that's the biggest mistake with Star Trek. Cut your budget. Tell a story that Star Trek fans want to see. Not some blow them up, shoot them up, everything blowed up good kind of story. And be willing to accept that the movie's not going to make $150 million. Be willing to accept that you have a niche audience when it comes to Star Trek. The fact that they keep trying to add swearing explosions to Star Trek to try to appeal to everybody is ridiculous. You're alienating, and this is going to come back to, I'm sure, what Red Letter Media is going to say, and this is why I'm doing this before I've watched the Red Letter Media thing. You are alienating your base by adding in all this swearing and ultraviolence, and you're not going to gain a bunch of casuals to watch your show because they're going to look and go, well, it's Star Trek Picard. I don't care about that. So you're actually dwindling your fan base by doing that. The smartest thing Star Trek can do, if they're going to make another movie, you bring back the cast that was in Star Trek Beyond. You strip down the budget. You make it some really small, like look at Voyage Home, Star Trek 4. It's fantastic. And it takes place in the 1980s San Francisco. It's a cute little story. Do that. Do that. The whole universe doesn't have to blow up every single time you make a Star Trek movie. You don't have to threaten all of existence as we know it. And it feels like in sci-fi movies now, that's the thing. You got to blow everything up. You don't. You don't have to blow everything up every single time. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I don't think Star Trek's meant to be a mainstream show. It has appeal to nerds, myself included. It has appeal to that niche audience. You are not going to attract a mainstream audience to Star Trek other than when they did the reboot in 2009 and it had this great feeling and we all loved it and the music's epic and it's J.J. Abrams and you got lens flares and it's all a lot of fun. But you can't do it again. You can't have that reboot and that really good feeling and make $250 million, however much it made. It made a lot of money. And then keep doing it. So then Into Darkness came out. They botched it. They totally screwed it up. Why he was Khan, he shouldn't have been Khan. He should have just been Joe Schmo. Oh, Joe Schmo sucks. We hate Joe Schmo. Is he Khan? He's not Khan. Why would he be Khan? That's stupid. We don't need Khan. We can make new characters. No. And that's the issue. You could have a very good Star Trek movie. You could make a brand new Star Trek movie based on Romulans. After the destruction of Romulus, you could bring in the Cardassians. Not the Kardashians. We're not bringing in Kim Kardashian. The Cardassians. You could bring in the Ferengi. You could have something really cool with the Ferengi. And you could have this really neat little storyline. You can make the movie PG. You don't have to have a bunch of swearing in it. You don't have to have James Kirk coming on to every single woman within 5 feet of him. Because he didn't do that if you watch the original series. Hey, womanized, but not like they make it in the movie like, oh, hey, there's a skirt. Oh, hey, look at it. Oh, hey. It's not Jim Kirk. It's not Jim Kirk. He wasn't that bad. So, you could tell a really good story, but it doesn't feel like that's their intention now. That their intention is, okay, we got to ramp it this up, and it's got to be all action-packed all the time. And if there isn't an explosion every 10 minutes, if there isn't shooting every 10 minutes, people aren't going to care. And yet if you watch Next Generation, you watch, which most Trekkies, myself included, agree. I still call them Trekkies. I know Trekkers is that I don't care. Trekkies. Most Trekkies will agree that Star Trek Next Generation was the best series. That was the series that was absolutely fantastic. We loved it. So that series, if you go back and rewatch it, there's not a whole lot of stuff getting blown up. Now, there are some episodes where stuff gets blown up, but you build to it. And it's rare, so it feels special when you get to it. So this new Star Trek where there's stuff getting blown up all the time, you get numb to it and you don't care. And this is the problem I've had with Star Trek. I had that problem with Discovery where I'm like, holy crap, why is everybody shooting this is ridiculous. Everybody's getting shot and there's all this ultraviolence and now everybody swears. Why are people swearing? Oh, because it's on CBS All Access and we got to be edgy. Oh, this is stupid. So that's the cross that I bear as a Star Trek fan since I was a little kid. I mean, I had Spock and Kirk toys when I was 4 or 5 years old. I loved Star Trek. And not every episode involved shooting and blowing stuff up. So, I don't know that you can save Star Trek now. I don't know how you save it. There's still some debate about whether or not there's going to be another movie. I don't think they're going to have one. I think it's done. I think Star Trek Beyond, sadly, was the end. And I say sadly because Star Trek Beyond is an absolutely fantastic movie. But it's a niche Star Trek movie. And it's not going to appeal to mainstream. It's made for Star Trek fans mostly. And again, there's a lot of blow 'em up violence in that too. I'm not going to lie. There is. But it's written in the vein of being a Star Trek episode type thing. And you could buy that being a Star Trek episode. So absolutely a shame that that Star Trek Beyond underperformed and has led to the movies kind of being up in the air. But I think the biggest mistake they've made with Star Trek is trying to make it something it's not. Like when I see an article that's like, oh, comparing it to Marvel. Okay, no. Just knock it off. Marvel has always had mainstream appeal. Superheroes have always had mainstream appeal. Star Trek has not. Star Trek was a canceled TV show that was just absolutely terrible in the ratings, and then it caught on in syndication. And the movies, they just kind of happened. And then some of the movies were bad too, but the movies just kept happening. And now we're kind of stuck in this area where maybe somebody somewhere, some executive thinks Star Trek can be as big as Marvel. It can't. So knock it off. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Niche audience for Star Trek. I hope people agree with me on that, because honestly, there will never be a mainstream appeal to the there can't be a mainstream appeal to the show in my eyes. Just can't be. It's sci-fi nerd show. It's not Star Wars. Star Wars and Star Trek are completely different. And one of my worst moments watching The Big Bang Theory is when somebody says what's the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek, and Penny goes, "There is no difference." Spoken by somebody who's had a line written for her by somebody who's no idea what they're talking about. Nobody would ever say Star Wars and Star Trek are the exact same thing. They're not. One is a shoot 'em up space adventure, and the other one is Star Trek. One of them is based on the Force and being out in space and battles, and the other one is based on science and exploration and a better vision of the future, and an idea that we as humanity are better than what we're currently dealing with, and not pew 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 pew, which is what Star Wars basically is. But Star Wars has always been that, so it doesn't betray itself when the new movies are like that. But Star Trek definitely does. So when I heard of the Big Bang Theory, there is no difference. I'm like, okay, whoever wrote that for Penny has never watched either movie, because they're not the same at all. It's just not. Rant over. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support, and do hit like and subscribe. I'm a little suspicious about people not subscribing. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.